Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Porter Says podcast with your host and only host Heath, of course. All right, let's get straight into everything. As I've said, I don't want to keep you guys for too long. I don't think you want to look at my face for that amount of time. I'm not that interesting. So I've got a bunch of film news here. Well, not a bunch, but a couple of bits of film news, and for the first time in what feels like forever, I'll be talking about some music. Artists I've been listening to recently that I've discovered like for the first time this year, and a few that I've listened to for a couple of years now. And I'm sure most of you will probably know what this who I would assume some of you out there will know who the artists are, and if you don't, we'll get to that. We'll get to that soon. And then I'm going to be reviewing a series of films because I watched all four of the American Pie films, just like the main first four, not the spin-offs. The spin-offs, just to give you my brief thoughts on those, all of them are terrible. So they all suck. Even the one that came out a couple of years ago was really bad. I just don't know why they even bothered with spin-offs of American Pie. It made no sense to me why they would do that. But yeah, let's get on with everything. We'll do the news first. We'll get that stuff out of the way. Okay. So, the first official images for the new I Know What You Did Last Summer have been released, and it's an image of Freddie Prinze Jr., I think an image of Jennifer Love Hewitt, so both of those two are coming back from the OG movie, which was released back in 1997. I wasn't even born then, it's crazy to think that that's like over 20 years ago, probably more than that now. Wild, maybe close to 30. And I think there was an image released of some of the newer characters that are gonna be around for this one. I'm not entirely sure if this is like an official sequel to like the first movie, or if it's continuing off the sequel, which came out. I think that came out in 1998, so only a year after the first movie. I don't know. I think it's kind of in that reboot, requel, as it's been called these days. So I don't know. I think it's a legacy sequel, as well as also the term that tends to be used. But we'll see. I really enjoy those two films. I know there is a third one, but no one really talks about it. And if people do, they mostly shit on it. I have never had an interest in watching that. But the first two are solid 90s slashers movies. They're not particularly that good per se, but I still quite enjoyed them for what they are. They know what they are. They're not expecting you to get anything out of them or anything much from them. They're just very cheesy, stupid films. Jennifer Love Hewitt, I really like her as an actress. Freddie Prinze Jr. is great. I'm glad to see him in some more things, because he hasn't been in anything for quite a while, actually. So I'm keen to see that. Then we got I know they released a little teaser trailer about a month or two ago, but I think a couple of weeks ago they released the first official trailer for Final Destination Bloodlines, which I think is the 6th movie in this franchise. I honestly am shocked it has 6 movies. It looks pretty typical to me. I don't expect it to be that great of a movie. Like, it looks very violent and gory, like the other movies are. But I don't know. I don't really have much to say on at all. I mean, I enjoy the first 3 movies of Final Destination. Well, The first time I'd seen the first Final Destination back in 20, I think it was like 2018, 2019. First time watching it, I thought it was terrible. I remember watching it and I'm like, why do so many people like this? It's really bad. Like, I didn't care. But then I decided to give it another chance, and I believe about 2-3 years ago, I gave the first movie another chance, and honestly, it was a lot better than I remembered. I think it was a really fun early 2000s. I think it actually came out in 2000. And then I decided to watch the sequels, and I enjoyed 2 and 3. I think 2 and 3 were pretty solid for what they were trying to be and for what they are. And then 4 was terrible and 5 was terrible. I think at that point it just got very old. Because there's only so much you can do with the kills and how creative you can get. So I didn't see the point in making like another 2, because I think it was probably a pretty decent trilogy. And I do like how it kind of followed new characters each time, which was cool. But yeah, I don't know much about this one. I think it's all new characters. I don't know if any other characters are going to come back. Well, actually, I don't think they are, because from what I remember, most of them always ended up biting it. So, at the end of all of their movies, no one really makes it out alive. So yeah, that's that. Last bit of news is that Happy Death Day 3 has gotten a bigger update from the main star of the movie, and also the director, Christopher Landon. The main star's name is Jessica Roth, who played the character of Tree in the first 2 Happy Death Day movies. They're very much horror. It's a horror version of Groundhog Day. That's essentially what those. Well, the first one especially. The second one kind of leaned more into a sci-fi adventure, bit of horror, but more sci-fi elements, which was quite funny, and like alternate dimensions and stuff. The first one was kind of like a PG-13 horror movie. You didn't see much gore, and but yeah, the third movie's finally moving along. As I said, it was confirmed by the main star and the director themselves, and that's pretty cool, because it's been about 5 years since the second one was released, and I honestly, even though they're not the greatest movies in the world, I still want to see what else they can do. Yeah, I want to see what else they're going to come up with. Like, what's the next movie going to be? Like, who knows, really? Who knows with what they can do? And I'm glad it's the same director, because I think he's a pretty good director. He also did the movie Freaky, which was kind of like a horror version of Freaky Friday. And that was I think that's like a really good movie. Like, really good. By far his best movie. That I've seen, at least. With Catherine Newton, and Vince Vaughn. I'd recommend that one. I'd recommend that movie for sure. So that's in terms of the film news. There's a whole lot more, but I'm gonna save that for the next episode. Just to, as I said, just to spread it out and make sure it's as relevant, and keep you guys up to date if there's a lot of you out there who don't keep up with film and TV news, or just film news really, because that's all I seem to talk about. Like, there are TV show stuff coming out there, but I can't really find anything that's intriguing enough to me, unless it's intriguing to you, which then let me know down below if there's anything in terms of the TV world that you would want me to mention, any new seasons coming out or something. Alrighty. Now it's time to get into the music segment of this. For the first time in a long time, it feels like, as I stated at the beginning. Yeah. For those people who come here for the music segments or conversations, whatever, here you go. Yeah, just it feels like a bunch of artists, and it's a lot of them I found out about by watching the YouTuber Destry Smith. and he just like did a bunch of videos talking about his favorite music, and there was one of them was like a monthly favorites video or something, or each of those ones that he did more than a couple of years ago now, he just like listed off all these songs and artists. I'm like, okay, I gotta see who these are. Like, I want to listen to them. So I listened to a bunch of them during the last week or two. And the list of artists are Slow Magic, Moonwalker, Wave Racer, Pure Bathing Culture, Bayon, Death Cab for Cutie, and Neon Indian. Now, I'm sure there's a decent amount of you that know who those people are. I feel like Death Cab for Cutie and Neon Indian are the most popular ones. Maybe Pure Bathing Culture, I feel like, would also be very well known. What I like about this, well, pretty much all these artists' music, is that I love how relaxing they are. You know, very chill. And just, you can just sit down on like a rainy day or like a rainy night, and you just sit there, put on a bunch of their musics, add to your queue, and just listen to them. A lot of them are it's a very like electronic pop kind of style they've got going on. Some of them are more like upbeat and, you know, dance worthy than others, but most of them are very relaxing to listen to. And I just like, I queued a bunch of them and about 3 or 4 songs of each artist, and just listened to them in the span of like a few days, probably more than a few days, because I wanted to really take in the music and listen to it and get enough to talk about for this episode. I would recommend all these artists. The ones I would definitely, like, for sure, the 3 I would highly recommend: Death Cab for Cutie, Neon Indian, and Pure Bathing Culture. Especially Death Cab for Cutie. There's one song by them. Oh, what's the name of the song? It's a Ceiling or something. Something to do with the ceiling. Yeah, I'm going to say that. Correct me down below. And the Neon Indian has one called Shadow, which is really good. And then the Pure Bathing Culture has a song called Swinging Like a Pendulum. So those 3 artists, out of the however many I've mentioned, I would highly recommend. But I would recommend all of them, especially if you like that type of music that's relaxing and very electronic and very like upbeat. It puts you in a good mood, you know. A lot of it, there's a couple of songs that might be too depressing, and the music isn't for everybody. I will say that, but I quite enjoyed the songs I listened to, and I do plan on listening to more artists like that. If you have any to recommend, let me know, and I'll be sure to give them a listen. So that's the music. That's the music segment. All right, let's get into the main event of this episode. Now, it's kind of weird that I am going to be reviewing the American Pie film series, like the first 4, because there's nothing has come out about the series returning or anything, but because again, I rewatched all 4 and had a blast. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to talk about these 4 movies in this episode and see if, I'm sure many of you have seen these movies, and if you haven't, you're missing out for sure. You are missing out. So, obviously you've got American Pie from 1999. You got American Pie 2 from 2001. American Pie The Wedding, or American Pie 3, which was 2003, I think. And then finally, American Pie 4, American Pie The Reunion, which came out in 2012. I mean, what can I say about these movies that hasn't already been said? They are, to me, the first one is a comedy classic. I I've only seen it 3 times. Like, I only watched American Pie for the first time, like the series back in 2019 and 2020, um, and had so much fun. These characters, man, God, like, I love the cast in these movies. I love how raunchy these jokes get. Especially now that I was at a good age when I first watched them, because I was able, none of the jokes really went over my head. It was perfect. I was about 18, 19 when I watched these, and rewatching them about week or two ago. I watched them in the span of like a couple of days, and I was just, yeah. I mean, it's American Pie. They don't make movies like this anymore because of how sensitive people are these days to like comedy and all the raunchy jokes and stuff like that. And not everybody is sensitive, but there's a decent amount of people. And I don't mean to like start anything or something like that. I just, yeah, I mean, you got the character of Stifler, Steve Stifler, who was like, Sean William Scott nails that role in pretty much the only movie where he is a bit much is the third one. I think at that point he just turned it up, but it was still funny, funny enough, yeah. And then you got Eugene Levy as Jason Biggs. Well, that's the actor who plays Jim. Jim is one of my favorite characters in film. I really like that character. He's very relatable, and of course there's the iconic scene where he, does something with the pie, which I don't think I'm really allowed to say on here on YouTube or Spotify for that matter, so I'll keep it brief. But obviously there's the classic webcam scene. You got Alison Hagen in here. This one time at band camp, all those lines. You got Oz. You got what's his name? Oh, I can't remember the character's name, but he bangs Stifler's mother. Finch. He's the one who does it with Stifler's mother, who's played by Jennifer Coolidge. Kevin. I mean, you've got, yeah, just so many iconic moments in that series. Yeah, the American Pie series, man. I'd say 3 is probably the worst in that franchise. It felt like it didn't. I think at that point, the formula was maybe getting a bit too odd, and there was only like, obviously you had the 2 movies previous, obviously, but by this one it felt like they didn't really know what situations they were gonna have for this one, like kind of like awkward situations for the characters to get into. There's a couple, but they're not as funny as the other ones were in the first movie, like the whole situation with the pie in the first movie, and then the Jim and Nadia scene where he decides to kind of dance for everybody after Nadia tells him to do so because he was being a bit of a perv on her. 4, to me, I mean, even like watching it for the first time, it really surprised me that they got pretty much nearly every cast member to come back. Like, most of them like came towards the end of it, but it was still really cool that they were able to get them back. And there was a lot of like funny jokes in that one. Like it just kind of like, since it is however many 10, 20 years later, in the characters' lives, a lot of them don't really have much going for them. So I mean, Stifler's still the same dude. He's kind of stuck in the 90s and all that, but I do love the scene where he stands up to his boss, because he's kind of working at this like really bad or a really shitty job. Like the movie kind of makes it seem like when he first comes onto screen that he's like living it up and all that, but then it turns out he has a really like crappy boss. And I love when he stands up to him and goes, "Yeah, I'm the Stiffmeister," you know. And there's a couple of scenes that in all of them really that go a little bit too far. And I will say, the jokes in all those situations, as I said, you could not make a movie like this today. Like any of them. Because, again, there are a lot of sensitive people out there who would take it, like, too seriously and get, like, really offended. So I think that's why a lot of comedy these days just don't hit the same. Like, every once in a while you get a good one. Like, the movie Good Boys was a solid film. But other than that, I haven't seen too many comedies since the American Pie movies that have been as good as them. I mean, I was kind of rambling, but just to like pretty much put it into perspective, I love these movies. Even the third one, which I would give like a solid like 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'd give the first one 5 stars. Yup, I'm going that far. It is that good of a movie. And the second movie, I'd probably give a 4.5 out of 5. And then the fourth one would be 4. All of them are so good. Like, even as I said, the third one is still a really solid movie, to me at least. And that's rare for a comedy series. Which, you know, most of the time they only have, like, the first one's always maybe the only good one, and then like the rest of the sequels suck. But to me, like, I think American Pie is one of the more consistent comedy series in terms of these main 4 movies. Like the spin-offs, no one cares about the spin-offs. If there's anybody out there who likes them, good for all 2 of you. Maybe 5, I don't know, 5's maybe being generous. Yeah, that's the American Pie review series, little ramble about how good these movies are. Because, yeah, I adore those movies. And I forgot how much I really liked them. Because I hadn't seen them in like maybe 4 or 5 years. So it was a lot of fun to go back and rewatch them a second. I think the first 2 I'd seen... I think this is my 3rd watch of the first 2 movies, and then the 3rd and 4th one were my second viewings, because I think a couple of years ago I was rewatching them and I only got through the first 2. I didn't watch the other 2. I guess I just had other stuff going on at that point. But then yeah, this time I rewatched all of them within the span of a couple of days, because they're movies that they're not long. They get in and they get out very quickly. I think the pacing of them is actually pretty solid. And that's how, you know, that's what most comedy should be. Comedy shouldn't be over 2 hours. I think they should be at least close to like an hour 30, hour 40, maybe. Anything over 2 hours at some point, the comedy just gets very boring. So cool. That's gonna conclude the this episode of the Porter Says podcast with your host and only host, Heath. But hope you enjoyed. Let me know down below what you think of the American Pie movies, if you've seen them. Let me know if you've heard any of these artists, and if I've recommended a bunch of good ones to you, and go listen to them, and I hope you like them. So yeah, come back and let me know, and hope you enjoyed the film news, and if you're interested in any of those movies that are going to be coming out relatively soon. Yeah, and I guess I'll catch you guys next time. So yeah, take care everyone, and happy Easter.